18 years ago, I walked through the front door of my home in Portland, Oregon, my heart swelling with pride. I'd just won first place at a debate championship, my hands clutching a trophy I couldn't wait to show my family. I imagined their smiles, maybe a rare moment of approval. But the house was silent. Too silent. The living room was stripped bare, no sofa, no TV, no family photos on the walls. My footsteps echoed as I called out for my parents, Elton and Maris, and my brother, Soren. No answer. A chill crept up my spine. In the kitchen, on a cold, empty counter, I found it, a single sheet of paper in my father's handwriting. 9 words that shattered my world: "You'll figure it out." I was 17, alone, abandoned without a goodbye. I checked my bank account, the one I'd filled with years of savings for college, gone. They'd taken every penny. My chest tightened, my breath shallow, as the weight of betrayal sank in. I stood there, trophy slipping from my fingers, realizing the people I trusted most had chosen to erase me. That moment could have broken me. It didn't. It forced me to discover a strength I never knew I had, to build a life from the ashes of their desertion. This is the story of how I survived, not just to exist, but to thrive, to redefine what family means, and to face the past when it came knocking again. Now, at 35, I'm the CEO of a tech company worth millions, a name on Forbes 30 Under 30, and the founder of a nonprofit that helps teens like the one I was, abandoned, left to figure it out. But success didn't erase the scars. When my family saw my name in headlines, they returned, not with apologies, but with demands for money, as if my achievements were theirs to claim. I could have given in, let guilt pull me back into their chaos. Instead, I chose boundaries, fought them in court, and reclaimed my story. This journey wasn't just about surviving their betrayal, it was about building a life where I defined my worth, where family became the people who stayed, friends, mentors, those who saw me when my own blood didn't. I learned resilience isn't just enduring pain, it's transforming it into purpose. My story is for anyone who's been left behind, who's felt the sting of betrayal from those meant to love them most. If you've ever had to rebuild after someone walked away, this is for you. I want to hear your story. Where are you watching from? What's helped you rise above? Drop it in the comments, hit like, and subscribe to join a community of survivors turning pain into power. Visit figureitoutfoundation.org to support teens facing what I did. Together, we can show the world that abandonment doesn't define us, our strength does. Let's start this journey. Stay with me. I grew up in a quiet corner of Portland, Oregon, in a house that looked like any other on our suburban street. From the outside, we were a typical middle-class family, 2 parents, 2 kids, a neatly trimmed lawn. But behind closed doors, chaos simmered. My father, Elton Vale, was a sales manager at an electronics store, but his real passion was gambling. He'd disappear for what he called guys' weekends, returning either flush with cash or sullen, his eyes dark with defeat. My mother, Maris, was no better with money. She worked as an administrative assistant at a dental office, but her shopping addiction kept our credit cards maxed out. Mysterious packages would arrive, designer clothes she'd hide in her closet, tags still attached. Their fights were a constant soundtrack to my childhood, sharp, venomous exchanges that filled the house with tension. "You blew the mortgage at the casino again," Maris would scream. "If you didn't need another purse, maybe we'd have electricity," Elton would fire back. Neither took responsibility, always blaming the other or some external force for our crumbling finances. The air in our home was thick with their resentment, and I learned early to navigate it carefully, to make myself small, unnoticed. My younger brother, Soren, and I grew up in this storm, but we weathered it differently. I buried myself in schoolwork, seeking order in a world that felt like it was always on the verge of collapse. Our family wasn't just dysfunctional, it was a house of cards, waiting for a single gust to bring it all down. In our family, Soren was the golden child. 2 years younger, he could do no wrong in my parents' eyes. His C's were celebrated like victories, while my straight A's were met with indifference or accusations of showing off. Not everyone needs to hear about your perfect GPA, Eloan, Maris would snap. You think you're better than us, Elton would mutter, his words cutting deeper each time. Soren learned from their example, sneering, teacher's pet, when I studied instead of watching TV. It wasn't true. I had friends, a tight group from advanced classes and debate, but at home, I was defective for wanting more. School became my sanctuary, a place where effort mattered, where I could control something. My maternal grandmother, Lenora, was the one person who saw me. A former secretary at IBM, she loved technology and bought me my first computer at 12, a refurbished desktop that opened a new world. You've got a logical mind, Eloan, she'd say, teaching me to organize digital photos or set up email filters. Computers follow rules, unlike people. Her belief in me was a lifeline, a quiet encouragement that kept me grounded. I signed up for programming classes in high school, building basic websites for local businesses to earn extra cash. Those hours coding, solving problems with logic and precision, were my escape from the chaos at home. Lenora's faith gave me something my parents never did, a sense that I was enough. But even that light couldn't fully shield me from the growing darkness in our household, the cracks that were starting to show. By 15, I'd learned to guard what little I had. I saved nearly every penny from my website gigs, stashing it in a bank account my parents didn't know about. But they found it. We need to borrow some money for bills, Maris announced one day, not asking, just stating. It's temporary, Eloan. Over the next year, they took nearly $2,000, every cent I'd earned for my future. Not a penny was repaid. When Lenora passed away unexpectedly from a stroke at 16, I was devastated. She'd been my anchor, my cheerleader. In her will, she left me $5,000 for my education, with a note, "For your dreams, my brilliant girl." I hid that money in a new account at a different bank, statements sent to a friend's house, knowing my parents' habits. Their financial chaos was worsening, bills piled up on the kitchen counter, some stamped, "Final notice." Collection calls rang at all hours, and I overheard hushed arguments about foreclosure. Elton's gambling debts grew, Maris's shopping sprees didn't stop. They were drowning, but instead of facing it, they deflected, blaming each other or bad luck. I kept my head down, focusing on my grades, my coding, my dream of college, a way out. I applied for every scholarship, determined to build a future they couldn't touch. But their desperation was a shadow I didn't fully see, a storm gathering strength. I was too focused on my own plans, my quiet optimism, to notice the warning signs, their whispers that stopped when I entered a room, their sudden interest in my savings. I thought I was safe. I was wrong. At 17, I was on top of the world. I'd just won first place in a Lincoln-Douglas debate championship in Seattle, my trophy a gleaming symbol of everything I'd worked for. I practically sprinted home from the bus drop-off, eager to share the moment, hoping for once my parents might be proud. But the driveway was empty, no cars, no life. The living room curtains were gone, leaving bare windows. My heart sank as I unlocked the door. Elton? Maris? Soren? I called, my voice echoing in a half-empty house. The sofa, the TV, the family photos, gone. Empty hooks lined the hallway. My parents' bedroom was stripped bare, no clothes in the closet. Soren's room held only discarded papers and broken toys. In the kitchen, I found a box of stale cereal, some condiments in the fridge, and a single sheet of paper on the counter. Elton's handwriting, Eloan, we've had to make difficult decisions due to our financial situation. We're relocating to start fresh. You've always been independent and smart. You'll figure it out. Don't try to contact us. I read it 7 times, willing the words to change. They didn't. I called their phones, straight to voicemail. My aunt in Spokane admitted they'd sworn her to secrecy, claiming I'd be fine. The neighbors thought I was staying with a friend's family. No one knew the truth. My family had packed a rental truck while I was at the debate, leaving me behind like unwanted furniture. The trophy slipped from my hands, clattering to the floor. In that moment, the life I'd known vanished, replaced by a reality I couldn't comprehend. That night, alone in the house they'd gutted, I felt the world collapse. The note's words, "You'll figure it out," burned into my mind, a cruel dismissal. I found a half-burned photo of myself in the trash, as if I'd been erased from their lives. My calls to Soren finally connected, but his voice was cold. "You didn't fit the plan. You're smart enough to handle it." His words hit like a physical blow, casual cruelty from the brother I'd once protected. My chest tightened, my heart raced so fast I thought it was a heart attack. I curled up on my bed, the only furniture left in my room, and sobbed until no tears remained. Sleep didn't come, panic attacks rolled in waves, each one whispering that I wasn't enough, that I'd done something to deserve this. The family I'd believed loved me, despite their flaws, had discarded me. I stared at that note, its 9 words a mockery of everything I'd fought for. But in that darkness, a spark flickered, a stubborn refusal to break. I didn't know how, but I'd figure it out, not because they said so, but because I had to. For myself. For Lenora. For the future they tried to steal. The morning after I found the note, I woke up on my bedroom floor, the only place I could bear to sleep in that hollow house. My family's betrayal was a wound that pulsed with every heartbeat, the words, "You'll figure it out," echoing like a taunt. I pulled on yesterday's clothes, the same jeans and hoodie I'd worn to the debate championship, and walked to school in a daze. My trophy, once a symbol of triumph, lay forgotten on the kitchen floor. At school, I sat in the counselor's office, clutching that crumpled note, my voice shaking as I explained what happened. Ms. Rivera, my school counselor, read it with wide eyes, her face tightening with anger. "This is child abandonment, Eloan," she said. "It's illegal, and it's wrong." She called Child Protective Services, who sent a social worker to the house that afternoon. The worker, a woman with a clipboard and tired eyes, documented the emptiness, bare walls, missing furniture, the fridge with nothing but ketchup packets. But the system moved like molasses, and I felt like a problem no one knew how to solve. Neighbors thought I was staying with a friend's family. My aunt in Spokane refused to take me in, saying my parents had sworn I'd be fine. Fine? I was 17, with no money, no family, and a future that felt like it was slipping through my fingers. Panic clawed at my chest, my breath short and sharp, as I realized I was on my own. I kept expecting my parents to come back, to say it was a mistake, but the silence was deafening. That first night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering how to survive when the people who were supposed to love me had left me behind. I didn't have answers, but I knew I couldn't let their choice define me. In the chaos of that first week, one person became my anchor, Ms. Carver, my debate coach. She found me in the school library, hiding behind a stack of books, pretending to study while my world unraveled. "Eloan, you're not going through this alone," she said, her voice firm but kind. She offered me her guest room, a small space with a twin bed and a desk, insisting it was no trouble. I packed what little I had, some clothes, my schoolbooks, and Lenora's old computer, the one thing I couldn't leave behind. Moving into Ms. Carver's home felt like stepping into a lifeboat after a shipwreck. Her house was warm, filled with the smell of coffee and the soft hum of NPR on the radio. She didn't pry but checked on me, leaving notes with my breakfast. "You're stronger than you know." I felt like a burden, an intruder in her quiet life, but she waved off my apologies. "Your family now," she'd say, and those words, simple as they were, stitched something broken inside me. Ms. Carver taught me debate, but more than that, she taught me resilience. sharing stories of her own struggles as a single mother who'd fought to become a teacher. She connected me with a social worker who cared, someone who promised to help navigate the system. For the first time since the note, I wasn't alone. Ms. Carver's home gave me a place to breathe, to think, to start piecing together a plan. I clung to Lenora's computer, its weight a reminder of her belief in me. It wasn't just a machine, it was a promise that I could build something from nothing. With Ms. Carver's support, I began to see a path forward, a way to survive not just for myself, but to honor the one person who'd never stopped believing in me. I knew I couldn't stay in limbo, waiting for a system that moved too slowly to save me. At 17, I needed control over my life, my decisions, my future. Ms. Rivera introduced me to Richard Garfield, a pro bono attorney who specialized in family law. He was a no-nonsense man with graying hair and a voice that carried quiet authority. "Emancipation will give you legal independence," he explained. "You'll be able to sign contracts, apply for aid, and live without needing a guardian." It sounded like freedom, but the process was daunting. I had to prove I could support myself, that I was mature enough to stand alone. Richard helped me gather evidence, my grades, my part-time website gigs, letters from teachers. We filed the petition, and I stood before Judge Angela Martinez, a woman with sharp eyes and a reputation for fairness. My voice trembled as I explained my parents' abandonment, the note, the stolen savings. "They left me with nothing," I said, holding up the note as evidence. "But I'm not nothing." The judge's face softened, but her words were firm. "What your parents did was reprehensible, Eloan. You deserve better." She granted my emancipation that day, a legal declaration that I was my own guardian. It was a victory, but bittersweet. I was free because the people who should have protected me had walked away. With emancipation, I could sign leases, apply for scholarships, and access my remaining savings without fear of my parents' reach. It wasn't just paperwork, it was a shield, a way to reclaim the agency they'd tried to strip from me. Richard shook my hand after the hearing, saying, "You're going to do big things." For the first time, I believed him. That court ruling didn't erase the pain, but it gave me the tools to start building a life on my own terms. With emancipation, I threw myself into survival. I worked 3 part-time jobs, barista at a local coffee shop, shelving books at the library, and data entry for a small business, each shift a step toward stability. My days started at 5 a.m., brewing coffee for early commuters, and ended past midnight, hunched over textbooks. Sleep was a luxury, averaging 4 hours a night, my body running on adrenaline and cheap instant coffee. My grades didn't slip, they couldn't. School was my lifeline, my ticket to a future my parents couldn't touch. I aced AP classes, led the debate team, and coded websites on weekends for extra cash. But the grind took a toll. Panic attacks came without warning, my heart racing, my vision blurring, convinced I'd fail and end up like my parents, running from debt and responsibility. Nightmares haunted me, visions of that empty house, the note's words looping in my mind. Therapy with Dr. Patel, a kind woman with a calm voice, helped me unpack the trauma. "Their choice wasn't about you," she said. "It was about their failures." Slowly, I began to believe her. I graduated high school as valedictorian, my speech about resilience delivered to a crowd where no family sat. With scholarships, Lenora's $5,000 inheritance, and student loans, I enrolled in college for computer science. I lived frugally, ramen noodles, thrift store clothes, a shared dorm room with flickering lights. Every penny was accounted for, every decision calculated. The weight of being on my own never lifted, but I learned to carry it. Each essay I wrote, each line of code I debugged, was a defiance of their abandonment. I wasn't just surviving, I was fighting for a life that proved them wrong, a life where I defined my own worth. There were moments when the weight felt unbearable. One night, alone in Ms. Carver's kitchen, I sat on the floor, clutching Lenora's old computer, its edges worn from years of use. Tears streamed down my face as I whispered to no one, "I can't do this." The note's words mocked me, a reminder of my parents' betrayal. But then I thought of Lenora, her quiet strength, her belief that I could be more than my circumstances. I made a vow to myself, to her, I would prove them wrong. Not out of spite, but because I deserved better. In college, that resolve was tested. My roommate, a kind girl named Lila, invited me to her family's Thanksgiving, their home filled with laughter and warmth I'd never known. I declined, unable to bear the pity in their eyes. Instead, I sat in my dorm, eating instant noodles, staring at that cursed note I'd kept pinned to my bulletin board. It wasn't just paper, it was a challenge, a dare to rise above. Each time I wanted to quit, I'd touch Lenora's computer, remembering her words, "You've got a logical mind." That logic became my armor, my coding a way to impose order on a chaotic world. I wasn't just fighting for survival, I was building a future, line by line, choice by choice. The loneliness was crushing, but it forged something in me, a stubborn, unyielding resolve. I wasn't the girl they left behind. I was a Loan Vale, a survivor, carving her own path. That note didn't define me, it ignited me. I'd figure it out, not because they said so, but because I was capable, because I was enough. And in that quiet dorm room, with nothing but a flickering lamp and a dream, I promised myself I'd keep going, for Lenora, for the girl I'd been, and for the woman I was becoming. College was my chance to rewrite my story, a blank page after the chaos of abandonment. I enrolled in computer science at a state university in Oregon, cobbling together scholarships, Lenora's $5,000 inheritance, and student loans to cover tuition. My dorm was a cramped, dimly lit room I shared with a girl named Lila, but it was mine, a space my parents couldn't touch. I lived frugally, surviving on instant ramen and thrift store clothes, every dollar stretched to its limit. The weight of being on my own never lifted, but I carried it with purpose. My first semester, I buried myself in code, finding solace in its logic, its predictability. Unlike people, computers didn't betray you if you followed the rules. That's when I met Professor Janet Hughes, a woman with sharp intellect and an uncanny ability to spot potential. She noticed my encryption protocol for a class project, a program designed to secure small business data. "This isn't just good, Eloan," she said. "It's marketable. You could build something with this." Her words were a spark, reigniting a dream I'd nearly forgotten, to create, to innovate, to prove I was more than the girl left behind. Professor Hughes became my mentor, guiding me through complex algorithms and pushing me to think bigger. She introduced me to industry contacts, shared stories of her own struggles as a woman in tech, and reminded me that success wasn't just about talent, it was about grit. I started therapy with Dr. Patel, a calm, insightful woman who helped me unpack the abandonment. "Their choice wasn't your fault," she said, and slowly, I began to believe her. College wasn't just about earning a degree, it was about rebuilding trust in myself. Each line of code, each late-night study session, was a step toward a future I could control. Professor Hughes and Dr. Patel didn't just teach me, they showed me I was worth believing in, a lesson my parents never gave. After college, I faced a crossroads, a stable job at a tech giant or a riskier path. I chose the latter, driven by a hunger to build something of my own. I joined a small startup in Portland, where I met Tobin Grant, a programmer with a quick laugh and big ideas. We bonded over late-night coding sessions, fueled by energy drinks and a shared belief that we could change the game. My encryption protocol from college became our foundation, a tool to protect businesses from data breaches. Over coffee at a cramped diner, Tobin and I sketched out a business plan on napkins, dreaming of a company that could compete with the big players. We needed funding, so I pitched our idea to Marcus Chin, a local investor with a reputation for betting on underdogs. My hands shook as I presented our demo, explaining how our software could secure sensitive data with unmatched efficiency. Marcus leaned back, silent for what felt like forever, then said, "You've got something special here, Eloan. I'm in for 50,000. That check was our lifeline. Tobin and I quit our jobs, rented a tiny office with peeling paint and flickering lights, and threw ourselves into building our company. We worked 16-hour days, coding, debugging, and learning the messy art of entrepreneurship. I leaned on Professor Hughes for advice, her voice a steady guide through the chaos. "Stay focused," she'd say. "The world doesn't hand out second chances easily." We named our company CipherCore, a nod to the encryption that started it all. Those early days were electric, filled with the thrill of creation, but also terrifying. Every decision felt like a gamble, every setback a reminder of how easily it could all collapse. Yet I kept going, driven by the memory of that note, "You'll figure it out," and a refusal to let it define me. CipherCore wasn't just a business, it was my declaration that I could build something lasting from the wreckage of my past. Building CipherCore was like climbing a mountain in a storm. Our first version crashed during a demo for a potential client, leaving Tobin and me scrambling to fix bugs at 3 a.m. A competitor slapped us with a frivolous lawsuit, claiming we'd stolen their code, a lie, but it drained our funds and morale. With only 6 weeks of runway left, we were on the brink of failure. I'd wake up in a cold sweat, haunted by nightmares of empty houses and broken dreams, wondering if I'd overreached. But giving up wasn't an option, not after everything I'd survived. I poured my heart into a new pitch, refining our software until it was bulletproof. I reached out to Sofia Rodriguez, a venture capitalist known for backing bold ideas. Standing in her sleek conference room, I laid out our vision, secure data for businesses, built by a team that knew what it meant to fight against the odds. Sophia's questions were brutal, probing every weakness in our plan, but I answered with clarity, drawing on years of debate training and raw determination. When she offered $2 million, I nearly cried, not from relief, but from the weight of what it meant. That investment saved us. We hired a team, growing from 2 to 200 employees in 18 months. Our software landed $1 million contract with a national retailer, proving its worth. Forbes named me to their 30 under 30 list, a surreal moment that felt like a middle finger to my parents' abandonment. But success didn't erase the struggle. I'd built a company, but the scars of betrayal lingered, a quiet ache that surfaced in moments of doubt. CipherCore's rise was proof I could create something extraordinary, but it was only half the battle. The real challenge was learning to trust, not just in my work, but in the people around me, in the life I was building from the ground up. Success brought a spotlight, but it also exposed the parts of me still healing. Forbes' recognition made my name public, and with it came a flood of emotions I'd buried. I bought a modest house in Portland, my first real home, with hardwood floors and a small garden I'd tend to clear my mind. It was a milestone, but walking through those quiet rooms, I felt the absence of family, not the one that left me, but the one I longed to build. Therapy with Dr. Patel became my anchor, helping me unravel the trust issues that kept me guarded. "You don't have to carry their betrayal forever," she said, and I worked to believe her. I leaned on my chosen family, Zara, my college friend who'd called just to talk, Ms. Carver, who still sent me encouraging notes, and Tobin, who'd become a brother in all but blood. But letting people in was hard. I dated a colleague, Ian, whose kindness disarmed me. We'd laugh over pizza, plan hiking trips, but when he got too close, I pushed him away, haunted by the fear that anyone could leave. "You're locked away, Eloan," he said, and he was right. That breakup stung, but it taught me I needed to heal before I could love. At my lowest, I found Lenora's letter in a drawer, "For your dreams, my brilliant girl." It was a lifeline, a reminder of why I'd started this journey. I wasn't just building a company, I was building myself. Slowly, I learned to trust again, to see my worth beyond my achievements. CipherCore was thriving, but the real victory was internal, forgiving the girl who felt unlovable, embracing the woman who'd survived. I wasn't defined by the note or the emptiness it left. I was Eloan Vale, and I was enough, not because of what I'd built, but because of who I'd become. 18 years after they left me with a note and an empty house, my family reappeared. It started with a Facebook message from Soren, my younger brother, the golden child who'd once dismissed me with a cold, "You're smart enough to handle it." His words were casual, almost nostalgic, "Proud of you, sis. Saw you in Forbes. Can we talk?" My heart caught in my throat, a mix of curiosity and dread. Then came an email from Maris, my mother, her tone dripping with regret. "We made mistakes, Eloan," she wrote. "We want to make things right." Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet them at a diner in Portland, a neutral space where I could keep my guard up. Walking in, I barely recognized them. Elton, my father, had aged beyond his years, his face lined with weariness. Maris moved slowly, her hands trembling as she clutched a coffee mug. Soren sat with his wife, Celine, their 2 kids mentioned but not present. They spoke of hard times, medical bills, job losses, a life unraveling in Arizona. Their apologies felt rehearsed, their eyes flickering to my purse, my clothes, as if calculating my worth. I wanted to believe they'd changed, that they missed me, not my success. But something felt off. Their questions veered to my company, my income, their voices softening with need. "We're family," Elton said, leaning forward. "Family helps each other." My stomach twisted. I'd spent years building a life without them, and now they were back, not for me, but for what I'd become. A background check, done on a whim, confirmed my suspicions: bankruptcies, evictions, a trail of scams stretching back years. They hadn't come to reconnect, they'd come to claim a piece of the empire I'd built from their betrayal. The diner's fluorescent lights felt too bright, their words too heavy. I left with a polite promise to stay in touch, but my heart knew the truth: this wasn't a reunion. It was a transaction. I should have cut contact after that diner meeting, but a small part of me, the girl who'd once longed for her family's approval, hesitated. Maris's emails kept coming, each one more desperate, weaving tales of hospital stays and looming debt. Soren called, his voice smooth, mentioning his kids' school fees, as if I owed them a future. Then they moved to Portland, uninvited, renting a cheap apartment just miles from my home. Their demands grew bolder. $4,000 for rent, Elton wrote, claiming it was temporary. $50,000 for Maris's surgery, Soren added, no proof provided. I paid one medical bill directly to the hospital, hoping it would end there, but it was like feeding a fire. They called daily, showed up at my office unannounced, their presence a shadow over the life I'd built. I'd catch Maris lingering outside my house, waving like we were close, her smile a mask. Elton sent texts laced with guilt, after all we did for you, Eloan, you can't spare a dime? Their entitlement stung, as if my success was theirs to harvest. I hired a private investigator, and the truth was uglier than I'd imagined. They'd run cons in Arizona, borrowing against homes they didn't own, dodging creditors. My Forbes feature had been a beacon, drawing them back to exploit the daughter they'd abandoned. Each demand chipped away at the walls I'd built, stirring old wounds. I'd wake up at night, heart pounding, that note, "You'll figure it out," echoing like a curse. I wanted to help, to believe in redemption, but their actions screamed manipulation. They didn't see me as family, they saw me as a resource. The final straw came when they crashed a board meeting at Cipher Core, Elton's voice booming through the office, "We're your parents, Eloan. You owe us." That was it. I wasn't their daughter anymore, I was the woman who'd survived their betrayal. I wouldn't let them unravel me again. I needed to end this, not with anger, but with resolve. I'd had enough. Their demands, their unannounced visits, their brazen sense of entitlement, it was harassment, plain and simple. I contacted Sarah Goldstein, an attorney recommended by a colleague, known for her fierce advocacy in family disputes. Over coffee, I poured out my story, the abandonment, the note, their sudden return after my Forbes feature. Sarah's eyes narrowed as she read their emails, her pen tapping the table. "This isn't reconciliation, Eloan," she said. "It's exploitation. We'll stop it." She drafted a cease and desist letter, demanding they halt all contact. When that didn't work, Maris sent a tearful voicemail, Elton left a note at my office, Sarah filed a lawsuit for harassment and emotional distress. The process was grueling. I had to relive the abandonment in depositions, recounting the empty house, the stolen savings, the years of rebuilding. Soren's testimony was the turning point. He appeared in court, his face pale, admitting they saw Eloan's success as a lottery ticket. They planned to guilt her into paying. His betrayal hurt, but it was honest, a crack in the facade my parents had built. Elton and Maris countersued, claiming they'd invested in me by raising me, demanding a share of my company's profits. The audacity was breathtaking. Judge Angela Martinez, a woman with a no-nonsense demeanor, saw through their lies. "You abandoned a minor, leaving her with nothing but a note," she said, her voice sharp. "Your claim is frivolous." She granted a restraining order, barring them from contacting me, and awarded damages for emotional distress. The courtroom felt like a battlefield, but I walked out lighter, the weight of their manipulation lifting. The law couldn't erase the past, but it gave me protection, a legal boundary where love had failed. I'd fought not for revenge, but for peace, for the right to live without their shadow. It was a victory, but it came with a quiet ache. Family was supposed to be a refuge, not a fight I had to win. Before the lawsuit, I faced one final confrontation. Elton showed up at Cipher Core, pushing past the receptionist to my office. "We made you who you are, Eloan," he said, his voice loud enough to draw stares from my team. My heart raced, but I stood tall, years of pain boiling into clarity. "You left me to die," I replied, my voice steady. "I made myself." He froze, his face crumpling, but I saw no remorse, only the shock of being challenged. I asked him to leave, my words a wall he couldn't breach. Days before the trial, I visited Lenora's grave, a quiet cemetery outside Portland where I'd often come to think. Kneeling by her headstone, I traced her name, whispering a promise, "I'll honor you by standing firm." Lenora had believed in me when my parents didn't, and her memory gave me strength. In court, their tears didn't move me. Maris sobbed, claiming they'd had no choice. Elton pleaded poverty, as if that justified abandoning a child. Judge Martinez's ruling was final. The restraining order was permanent after they violated its terms, contacting me through a cousin. Their countersuit was dismissed, their lies exposed. Walking out of that courtroom, I felt a release, not joy, but freedom. They'd lost the right to call me daughter 18 years ago, and no amount of guilt could change that. The note they'd left wasn't just a dismissal, it was a challenge I'd answered, not for them, but for me. I drove home that night, the Portland skyline glowing against the dusk, and realized I'd reclaimed my story. Their return had tested me, but it also proved my resilience. I wasn't the girl they'd left behind, I was Eloan Vale, a woman who'd built a life from their absence. The pain lingered, a quiet scar, but it no longer controlled me. I was free to define family on my terms, to build a future untainted by their betrayal. The courtroom victory over my parents gave me freedom, but it didn't heal the scars. I'd built a tech empire, a home, a name, yet the note they left me, those 9 words, "You'll figure it out," lingered like a ghost. I decided to take those words and make them mine, to turn their abandonment into something meaningful. That's when I founded the Figure It Out Foundation. Its mission was simple but urgent, to support teens facing abandonment, to give them what I didn't have, a safety net, a chance to thrive. We provide housing, scholarships, and mentorship, helping young people navigate the chaos I knew too well. Every application we receive, every story of a kid left behind feels like a mirror to my own past. I poured my heart into this work, hiring counselors, partnering with schools, and funding programs with my own savings. My memoir, The Note, poured out my journey, every painful step, and it struck a chord, climbing bestseller lists. My TEDx talk, delivered on a stage I never imagined standing on, reached millions online, carrying a message of resilience to those who needed it most. The foundation became my way of rewriting the narrative, not just for me, but for every teen who's been told they're on their own. Seeing a 17-year-old walk into our program, eyes wide with fear but also hope, reminded me why I kept going. This wasn't about erasing the pain, it was about transforming it into purpose. The note that once broke me became a rallying cry, a promise that no one has to figure it out alone. My parents thought they'd defined my future with their abandonment. They were wrong. Through the foundation, I was building a legacy, not of their betrayal, but of my strength, a testament to what's possible when you refuse to give up. Success and purpose didn't fill the void of family, at least, not the one I was born into. But I learned family isn't just blood, it's the people who choose you, who stay when the world walks away. Zara, my college friend, became my rock, always ready with a late-night call or a fierce defense when I doubted myself. Miss Carver, my debate coach who took me in at 17, remained a steady presence, her handwritten notes still arriving with words of pride. Tobin Grant, my co-founder at CipherCore, was more than a business partner, he was the brother I'd wished Soren could have been, loyal through every crisis. These were the people who saw me, not as a victim or a success story, but as a Loan, flaws and all. I also found love, slowly, cautiously, with Rowan Keller, an architect whose patience chipped away at my walls. He didn't push, didn't flinch when I admitted my fear of being left again. "I'm here," he'd say, and over time, I believed him. My biological family faded to a distant ache. I kept limited contact with Soren's kids, my niece and nephew, sending birthday cards but keeping boundaries firm. My parents violated the restraining order once, trying to reach me through a cousin, so it became permanent. I didn't hate them, I pitied them, their lives a cycle of chaos they'd never escape. But I wasn't theirs anymore. My chosen family taught me trust, a lesson harder than building a company. They showed me that love isn't owed, it's earned, built on presence and respect. The emptiness of that abandoned house, once a weight I carried, was replaced by the warmth of people who stayed. Family became a choice, a bond forged not by blood, but by loyalty, by love that didn't demand my soul in return. Looking back, the note my parents left wasn't the end of my story, it was the beginning. It forced me to discover a strength I didn't know I had, to build a life not just for myself, but for others. The Figure It Out Foundation isn't just a charity, it's a promise to every teen who feels abandoned that they are enough, that their future isn't defined by those who leave. At one of our events, I met a girl named Mia, 17, her story eerily like mine. Her parents had vanished, leaving a scribbled apology and a pile of unpaid bills. She stood in our community center, clutching a scholarship letter, her eyes brimming with tears but also defiance. When we hugged, it was like embracing my younger self, the girl who'd sobbed alone in an empty house. "You're going to make it," I told her, and for the first time, I felt I was speaking to both of us. That moment crystallized why I do this work, to give others the tools to rise, to turn pain into power. My journey, from a betrayed teenager to a CEO, from a lonely survivor to a leader, taught me that resilience isn't just surviving, it's creating something better from the ashes. Abandonment doesn't define your worth, it reveals your strength. Family isn't just who you're born to, it's who you choose, who chooses you back. If you're watching this, maybe you've felt that sting of betrayal, that moment when the people you trusted most turned away. I see you. You're not alone. Your story matters, and it's not over. Share it in the comments below, tell me, where are you watching from? What's helped you rise above the pain? Hit like, subscribe, and join a community of survivors who refuse to be defined by what broke them. Visit figureitoutfoundation.org to support teens like Mia, like the girl I was, who need a hand to hold, a chance to thrive. Together, we can show the world that no note, no betrayal, can stop us. We figure it out, not because we have to, but because we can. Because we're stronger than they know. Let's keep building, healing, and proving them wrong, one story at a time. If my story resonated, hit like and subscribe for more tales of resilience. Share your story in the comments. Have you overcome betrayal? Your voice matters. Visit figureitoutfoundation.org to support teens facing abandonment, to give them the strength I found. Together, we can turn pain into purpose. Check out my next video, How I Turned Pain into Purpose, to see how I built a life beyond the note. Let's keep this community growing, lifting each other up. You're not alone. Join us, share your journey, and let's prove we're stronger than our scars.